Remember, these guys, this is a Saturday and they've given up their time, so you need to show them some love, seriously.
In preference to free rugby tickets. Okay, so I need a lot of love tonight. Okay. Right. So my name is Kirstin. Can you hear me from that?
Yeah.
Okay. I work for an agency called the Terrence Higgins Trust. Anyone here heard of the Terrence Higgins Trust?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we provide support services for people living with and affected by HIV. We also promote good sexual behaviour. We give condoms away because we want people to stay safe. We want people to do what they're doing but do it safely. We want people to understand the risks around it and understand how to protect themselves from any sexually transmitted infection. That's what we're here about. HIV, I don't know if anyone is aware, is predominantly transmitted through sexual contact, but that doesn't mean to say that people are doing anything promiscuous or they're living their life in any way that we can offer any judgment about. Really what we're saying is that we all live our lives, and actually if we are having relationships with people, we should be using protection and we should be regularly tested for all sexually transmitted infections. We know that men are less likely to use condoms. They don't like using condoms, lots of men, and there's lots of reasons around that. My lovely colleague Rochelle yesterday was talking to people. She's got a range of condoms to talk about, and that's part of it. It's finding the right thing that works for you to keep you safe, healthy and well, which is the main message that we're trying to talk about today, about staying safe, healthy and well. Health is not just about your eyes and your teeth and your prostate or your heart. It's the whole of your body. That could be mental health and that's physical health. And sexual health comes underneath that body. We are all active in some way or another because we wouldn't exist here if it wasn't for that. One of the things I wanted to say was that HIV seems like a really scary thing to a lot of people. Is when you say HIV, they might say the word, oh, AIDS, that's a bit scary. Yeah. And people don't talk about it. There's lots of things we don't talk about health, but HIV is one of those things that we just don't talk about because it just feels so scary to people about the outcomes. And the message I wanted to say was that HIV is now come so far in the last 5, 10, 15 years that we are no longer in that situation where it is a terrifying disease which you're going to really struggle to manage for the rest of your life. Simply put, if you get your diagnosis early, it can be as simple as a pill a day. We can all manage a pill a day. And that will suppress your virus, and by suppressing your virus you can then get an undetectable viral load. That means that the virus is virtually asleep. It's not gone away. You take your pill and it will put the virus to sleep, which means you can't pass on the infection. If your virus is suppressed for 6 months or more, you cannot pass on the infection. Did you hear that? And that's amazing. That's an amazing thing that's happened. If we think about what's happened in our memories of HIV 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was a really scary thing for a lot of people. I remember I was 18, 19 when the letter came through the door going, terrifying messages, and that's not the message I want to leave you with. HIV is a manageable health condition, but the point is get tested and get diagnosed if you are at risk.
Okay, that's better. Right, this song I'm going to perform is called Rampant. Take off a little of the echo for me, please. Yeah. Right, the reason why this song came about with Rampant is that I work in the corporate world. And you get a lot of people that want to take liberties and certain things. And you go back in time where you think, okay, well my mum said when I was, don't let anybody take liberties from you, yeah, or take liberty out of you, right? So when you have a look at things, you've got to explain things with educated minds when you're dealing in the corporate world. And I said, okay, let me slam them with Rampant. Run the track. Now this This is one called Rampant. Watch out now. Give it up. From me, I day am in need. Mama said to me, watch out with them people that can tell no liberty who you are rampant. You must be things say this song. Don't let them give from my heart. Just cost them and them eye full of water. I would have a rampant when we sing this your song, yeah. I would have a rampant when we sing this your song. Watch it out. Good will counteract. Gonna stay apart from bad mind. Don't mix up in that iniquity. Told you once, but now I'll tell you twice. You ramp with me, but the turn on that nice. So you are rampant. You must see things in this don't know donkey from my heart. Just cost them and them eye full of water. Watch it out. I would have a rampant when we sing this your song, yeah. I would have a rampant when we sing this your song. Watch it out. Mama step in the pit in the bud before them started. Anyhow them coffee dragging, just let them parking. Chat behind your back and you know which one of them started. Ready up yourself and me say, wow, mama started. Started. Watch me now. Ah yes sir, ah yes indeed. I'm a competent speed in my power through my head. Cost them off and I lose it. See me smile but me not great it. Who them around me, who them bring them. Cost them off and my eyes are full up. But tell them keep great. You now prepare. You not best friend them at night. Now they tell them keep move. You don't have nothing to prove. Don't cost them off if them try stop the proof. Make them know that this ain't no kindergarten. If you think you're bad, then press me button. I put them a rampant, I feed them a rampant. Put them a rampant, I feed them a rampant. Mama say pity. Turn it back hours, I make her run up in night. Watch out now. Say we're strong like a lion, tough like my iron. And if you go to people like that, they keep it higher. I put them a rampant, feed them a rampant. I put them a rampant, we feed them a rampant. Watch out now. And the good will counteract. Wanna stay far from bad mind. Don't mix up in that iniquity. Told you once, but now I'll tell you twice. You're rampant, me, but me turn on that nice. So you are rampant. You must see things in this don't let them keep on my heart. Just cost them and I feel watch it up. I would have a rampant when we sing this your song.
Thank you, Dee. I'll keep it short. Basically, I got involved in gangs and drugs from a very young age. To me, I got involved at the start for the right reasons. I'll get more into that a bit later. So, after a while, the wrong reasons took over the right, and I enjoyed the lifestyle. I went to prison 3 times. On the 3rd time, I had 2 young daughters, and I didn't get to see them for 2.5 years. And that was my change in leaving that side and coming to this side. So now I work in a 16 to 18 semi-independent care home with children. With children that have been taken away from their mums and dads for whatever reasons. And also, earlier this year I became a community youth mentor. So I go into universities, primary schools, secondary schools, church groups, anywhere where there's young people aged between 12 and 21, sometimes a bit younger. And I just try and mentor them and give them a bit of knowledge in seeing that what they see on the telly and outside, that's not the best way to go. It's far from it. I've lived it. and I decided to come out on the other side. So that's my story.
As I said, we met probably for the last couple of years. I run a ladies networking group and we shared different things. Adrienne opened up and shared some things within the group. And when I said I was having this event, she said there was something that she'd like to share with yourselves. So, yeah.
Good afternoon, as Dee said. That's fine. I met her a couple of years ago at Simply Deez events, and to cut to the chase, one of the things we talked about was mental health, and particularly something that was prominent to me as well regarding suicide. It's not an easy subject to talk about, and it can be, I don't know what's the word, it's just a minefield because people don't know what other people are going through. You can't always see it. You don't always know it because a lot of people will hide how they really feel to the outside world. Everything's fine, but it goes on inside as well. So basically, one of my good friends, George Williams, he took his own life, and one of the poems that I wrote about 7 poems after he died, and this was one of them that I wrote. So I'm just going to try and be strong and share it with you. It's called Why, What If Only. I'll do both. Why did you have to die? Only you? No, not I. What if the powers of your will could rise above the pain instilled? Somewhere within yourself, happily, you could find your inner peace. Why did you sit alone and cry without me there to dry your eyes? What if you'd been given the chance to share your grief? I wish you'd given me the chance to help you live. If only I could step into your mind to see, but only you could feel it for real. Why did you take yourself from my side into a world where only you could hide? What if my life for you I could give, but still someone would have to grieve? If only you could live with me, with you as me, but only knew what was to be. Why, when we shared the bond of you and I, my shoulder of love, you could not lie? What if together we could hold onto the belief your life was precious enough to live? If only we had had the opportunity to be here together, you and me. Why did you have to leave me behind? For the pain still hurts inside. What if you could find another way through this crisis? If only you had reached out to me, but you knew in your mind it wasn't to be. Why, mixed emotions deep away from my eyes, the choice you chose, the stakes so high. What if we could look ahead and see spiritually that life for us is to experience, to learn and to live. If only reality wasn't felt so painfully, to know what this is doing to me. Why? Unanswered questions in my mind. Why? Such a lovely guy. What if these things work out differently, but we can't have the answers to everything? If only we could conquer our self-esteem to value the life God created within. Why did we not have the chance to say goodbye? I wonder why, as I sit here and sigh. What if this was your way of release? The price you paid, you're now eased. If only your laugh, smile and grin we could see, the many jokes you always gave to me. Why did you have to pass us by and take yourself to God's heavenly sky? What if, God knows, it was time to leave, but for us it's not so easy. If only you were here with me to share how much we loved you dearly. Thanks very much.
Good to see you. Now, Dee's looking at me, she's probably saying, hurry up, Lenny, hurry up. That's what it's all about. I have to move on, I have to move on. We come to a segment of our program today, which touches a lot of men. And it's a subject that a lot of people perhaps don't understand or talk about. It's a taboo subject in certain communities, but it's regarded or is considered a big killer amongst African Caribbean men, in fact amongst men. The statistics tells us 1 in 8 within the white or Asian community men die of prostate cancer, whereas it's 1 in 4 amongst the African Caribbean. Now for me, I was reading these articles and I was reading the statistics 1 in 4, and I say to myself, well, it's no longer 1 in 4 because I make it 2 in 4, because I myself experienced this last year. Now, before we dwell into that, it took a long time coming. A lot of people was talking about it, and I want to say a big shout to Dee Bailey coming to our show at Luton Urban Radio, and the young man I'm about to introduce, who came onto the show and was talking about it, and he said, Lenny, look, African Caribbean people got to get themselves checked out. You know, you got to go get yourself checked out. I said, what do you mean? He said, look, there's a large sort of statistics figures that many of you are part of, or many of us do lose our lives because we don't want to face reality or talk about it. So I did it for a long time. And then one day I thought, let me just go get myself checked. My family supported me, and this I did. Now, before I get into the story, I'd like you to give a warm hand up to the young man I'm about to introduce, Steve Gledhill. Would you like to come forward, sir, please? Now, of course, Luton Urban Radio is one of the stations that we work to in conjunction, Pumtengo Radio and other local stations. And this young man came into our show was sometime last year, of 2017. And he was talking about prostate cancer, and he was together with Dee Bailey. And I was actually interviewing and talking to him about it. Then he said, look, get yourself checked. I said, look, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with me. I felt all right. I felt okay. And it was about March or April. And it didn't take me until perhaps June, July 2017 when I thought, let me get myself checked. Went to doctors, got the usual check, take your blood samples, whatever, within a week. They'll tell you if there's any symptoms or whatever. So then I got a letter to say, you need to come back. We need to do further tests. At that time I was kind of like thinking, well, it's just a normal thing. Maybe there's 1 or 2 things they've missed. However, it led to a next phase, which meant to say they'd found some symptoms, which still will obviously elaborate because I'm still learning and accepting. The next step was basically I was admitted to the hospital. They found out prostate cancer. I told my family, I told my daughters, I told my missus, my family. It wasn't, I wasn't worried about it. It was after the operation, which was a success. Then I began to read more and understand why perhaps a lot of us men don't want to talk about this thing, don't want to find out more about it. It was a success, the operation was a success. Then I began to understand why we need to talk about this and why we need to, to share amongst each other. So October 19th this year, it's been a year. And I've sort of recovering, feeling good. As I say, beginning to minister and talk to other people in the programs that we do, bring more awareness to our community. Now, Steve, how you doing?
Great, thanks.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
When we first met, you came into the show, you were talking to us about this. Tell us how you yourself got involved with prostate cancer.
Well, my involvement was coming up to the age of 60. I know I don't look it, but there we are. Coming up to the age of 60, I was with my GP and I said I ought to perhaps have a prostate cancer test. I had no symptoms, but I had this feeling. Actually, my GP refused to give me a test because he said I wasn't old enough, I had no symptoms, and I had no relatives with the disease. But I insisted, and a week later, a bit like Lenny, I was back. And I had a different treatment to Lenny. I had radiation therapy. And 5, 6 years later, I'm still alive.
Now, I know when we had our show together, which we have every Sundays, when Steve came on, it wasn't a question of saying African, Caribbean or white. It was just a question of men as a whole, that we need to get ourselves checked. Because some of us come from certain homes where certain subjects of these magnitude, we don't talk about it. But we hear maybe perhaps your uncle, your dad, your grandfather, or somebody passed away. And when they tell you the truth, they think, well, why didn't they get themselves checked? And today, a lot of men are finding that topic very, very hard to deal with. But I can honestly say right now, through the delight or the happiness of my family, even myself, you know, it's you find a different positive way of how we can deal and control these things. And later on within the program today, we're going to find we'll be talking about mental health, the well-being, other sort of things that are together will help us, of course, celebrate what we call International Men's Day. My story is not a story that many of you perhaps haven't heard before, but it's a story to encourage a lot of guys, a lot of men, to encourage our partners, whom we're grateful, our wives, girlfriends, and such, that it's something that we can talk about it, not to feel embarrassed. Talk about it. There are ways and there's a procedure you've got to go through. It shouldn't frighten us. It should give us that element of saying, I want to live a little bit longer. I want to see my daughters grow up. I want to see my friends. I want to enjoy life. But it is true to say that it's a subject that in certain homes or certain cultures or certain people, we don't talk about it because it's a hush-hush. A lot of us guys, we kind of fear the fact that we lose that masculinity business, you know, to feel I'm no longer a man or whatever. But there are treatments. You go through certain procedures. And I can honestly say right now, it's good to be here today to talk about this briefly, to be part of celebrating International Men's Day, and to have what called an input, right? An input in terms of, I went through that and it made a great difference. So today I'll say to all the guys, I'll say to all our partners, to all our wives and children, whatever, let's support each other. It's something that we shouldn't just put under the rug or whatever. We should talk about it, find out more. There are places you can go to. It starts off quite easily. You go to the doctors, you say you want to check. You just take injection or take the blood pressure or whatever it is, and they'll let you know it's free. There are obviously nurses, qualified people that can talk about those particular procedures. Yes, there's certain procedures you talk about chemotherapy and all that sort of thing, but in my case I thought just get it done. So yeah, I feel good. Got to lose a bit of weight as time goes by, but I still love my food, you know what I mean? But still, you can help each other by talking about these things, and prostate cancer is a killer. It says 1 in 4 die. The other communities, it says 1 in 8. So it's not just an African Caribbean thing, it affects all men. So today we'll be, hopefully be talking to you and sharing with you. There's some leaflets at different stores, we'll be finding out more. But before I just move on quickly, Steve, what will be your message to those today, not just African Caribbean, to the men as a whole or to the family? What message would you like to leave with them?
Quite simply, any man over the age of 50 should speak to their GP and ask for a test.
Just simple as that. Simple as that. Simple as that. And of course, we've got leaflets up there. We'll talk about it. They're quite easy leaflets you can follow through. A lot of guys, they tell you that, well, I don't really know, man. You know, we've seen documentaries. We've seen a lot of people just shying away from it. But my message today is, look, I want to celebrate more International Men's Day. I want to celebrate more things with everybody, the family. But these are things that we should go back at home, talk to our partners. If you just want to get yourself checked, there's nothing wrong with that. You can come up with the clear facts, nothing wrong with it, but just get yourself checked. A lot of people talk about Steve over the age of 40, 45, isn't he? Or well, that necessarily doesn't mean that, does it?
Between 50 and 60 is when it becomes most common.
That's right. But between now and then, the message is get yourself checked. So it's just a brief little segment on my side to say, look, at the time I kind of like delayed and was deliberating about it. I wasn't too sure. There was nothing wrong with me. I felt great. But I took the option to go and get myself checked, and that was the outcome. So for any of you guys out there, don't feel, intimidated or scared or whatever. Just follow the procedure. It's a simple procedure. You see a nurse, put the injection, let you know in a couple of weeks with a letter to say yes or no. But it's just a good health check. And I want to say thank you for just sharing with me this morning or this afternoon.
Well, thank you for that, Lenny. I say get checked, and some of you are saying, well, we have screening for cancer. In fact, ladies have breast screening, cervical screening, screening for bowel cancer. But for many complex reasons, there is no national screening for prostate cancer. It's up to the individual themselves to ask for it. So that's part of the important message. So this is me, Steve Gledhill. I'm a volunteer. The reason I became a volunteer is because I was successfully treated and I wanted to give something back to the community. And this is the message, of course, that I think Lenny has already pointed out to us, but it's a frightening statistic. Prostate cancer is the biggest killer of males or the biggest cancer killer for males in the country. That's why it's so important, and that's why I feel obliged to give you this message. 1 in 4, think of how many men there would be in this room that could get it, and can be cured if it's caught soon enough. But there we are, that's the other stark statistic. 1 man dies from prostate cancer every 45 minutes of every day. It's not a rare occurrence. There are at least, well, there are 3 people in the room that I know. Lenny, my friend Dave on the stall there, and myself. So that's 3 already, and there are possibly more. It's the most common male cancer in the UK, as I've just said. So I'll make it as quick as I can. What is prostate cancer? The symptoms and the problems. What can you do about prostate cancer? But most importantly, don't needlessly yourself become a casualty. So at the moment there are 300,000 people living with and after prostate cancer. That's a big number. Now this is not a quiz exactly, but what do you know about your prostate? Because I must admit, before I started on this road, I knew nothing about it myself. I don't know how to use this damn thing either. There we are. So where is the prostate? Well, it is down below. It's going to work eventually. There we are. Let's go back 1, I think. Let's go back to the old-fashioned way. Right. The prostate is underneath the bladder, as is shown there in graphic detail. It's a male-only organ, or a gland, to be pedantic. So only men have a prostate. It's a gland, as I've just said. Its job is to help make semen. And how big is a prostate? For something that can kill people so readily, it's quite interesting. And I have an example. It's the size of a walnut. It's a tiny part of the body, and when that becomes cancerous, it can kill you. So that's another part of the important message. So it's the size of a walnut. So what can go wrong? You can have an enlarged prostate. It's a common problem. It's common in men above 50, but it does not mean you have cancer and does not increase your risk, but it's something that needs to be treated. So if you have an enlarged prostate and you've got some problems, it doesn't mean you're going to have cancer, but it needs to be treated. You can have a thing called prostatitis, which is an inflammation or infection of the prostate. It's not the same as prostate cancer and does not increase your risk. But the key one, the killer, the prostate cancer, it can develop when cells start to grow in an uncontrolled way. That is what cancer is, very simply. And cancer can develop. Now there are changes to look out for that might mean a prostate problem. But I had no symptoms at all, which is what's so frightening. You could have this cancer growing inside you, feeling fit, healthy, with no symptoms. That's why you need to go and get it checked, because if you wait for it to become apparent, it could be too late. There we go. There are things to look out for. For example, needing to pee more often than usual, day or night, difficulty going for a pee and a weak flow, needing to rush to pee, feeling you haven't emptied your bladder properly, dribbling, and it can be similar for the cancer or non-cancer, but it's worth checking. But this again is the important point. Most men with early stage prostate cancer have no symptoms at all. That's why it's so frightening. So, are you at risk? We've already talked about this, I think, so I'll go through this quickly. 1 in 8 men in the population will get it, and for reasons that nobody knows, it's 25% of all Afro-Caribbean men. It's an older man's disease. It affects men over the age of 50. Occasionally you get people that have it younger. I came across recently 2 people, surprisingly working for Vauxhall in Luton, in their 30s that had it, but that is very rare, mercifully. There's another interesting thing, is the family risk. You're 2.5 times more likely to get prostate cancer if your father or brother has had it. That's compared to a man who's no relations. So if you've got a father, brother, or indeed close male relatives, that's an even more important reason to get tested. And interestingly, this has come up in only fairly recent research, you may also have a higher risk if your mother or sister has had breast cancer, particularly if they were diagnosed under the age of 60. So in a word, really, if there's cancer in the family, it's even more important. There is an aspect of body weight. No one knows how to prevent prostate cancer, but staying healthy is important. So become young, fit and healthy like me and it'll be all right. There we are. So there you are, you're all very worried, hopefully so anyway, if you're a male above 50. Or of course you've got relatives and fathers and other people that you know. But if you're at risk, what should I do next? And the important thing is to take action. Speak to your GP, that's really the best thing to do, your first port of call, and they can do a few tests. And they're very simple, non-invasive tests. The first test that they did, and people snigger about this sometimes, but it's the finger up the bum, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But the other one is the PSA test, which is a simple blood test, and they just analyse the blood. The PSA, the prostate-specific antigen, will find out whether you've got it. But there's no single test, or there's a whole range of tests that you go through as it's diagnosed. These are some of the other tests, a urine test, the PSA test I just mentioned, the prostate-specific antigen. And this is what we crudely call the finger up the bum, because this is the bum here, and you can put the finger up and you can actually feel the prostate, and if it's got enlarged or got a wrinkly surface, the doctor can check it. So it doesn't hurt, it's very quick, and that could save your life. That's the DRE, the digital rectal examination. Now the situation has changed actually since I was initially asking for a test. You actually now have a right for a PSA test if you're over 50 and you've talked about the pros and cons with your doctor. So unlike me, you don't have to argue for it, you can request it and you should not be refused. So what can you do about it? Take action. There's also the website, which is the prostatecanceruk.org, or download free information about the prostate problems. And there's this helpline number, the 0800 number there, where you can speak to a specialist nurse. That's very helpful if you're worried at all after having heard. And of course, again, I keep saying your GP. And read the free booklets. On the stall over there are a whole range of booklets. This one particularly for black men, prostate cancer and other prostate problems. There's another one, Know Your Prostate. And perhaps the most important one, there's a little leaflet there, which I have, so small it fits in your pocket. This is information for black men. It's the same for white, but it's got a slightly different tinge to it. And it opens up. It's got all the information you want. It's got the website address, the 0800 number. And if you just go away with one thing today, that little thing which says prostate cancer information for black men. Couldn't be clearer. But please, please, please take lots of these with you to give to your friends and colleagues. Take a bundle to put in your reception area at work and speak to us, and we can arrange to give lots of those for you. This is the inside of that leaflet I've just shown you. Again, often there are no symptoms, which is so frightening. There's no automatic screening in the country. It's up to you. Speak to your GP before it's too late. And follow the example of Lenny. Because this is the statistic. Every 45 minutes a man is killed by prostate cancer. So this next slide is from my photograph album. This is Lenny in the Lister Hospital. Because Lenny called me up and said, Steve, you pointed me in the direction to save my life, and I'd like you to come and see me so I can thank you personally. So this is Lenny in his hospital gown in the ward in the Lister Hospital. Being very, very pleased indeed to know that I've contributed in some way to saving a man's life. It's as simple as that.